Vulpine law declared she must undress, yet his gentle gaze changed everything. The city of Lyria was bathed in a muted amber glow as the twin suns sank below the horizon. Towering spires cast long shadows over the cobblestone streets, and a low hum of activity echoed from the marketplaces. Amid this bustling city, in the heart of the Vulpine quarter, a tense hush had settled. Rumor had it that the Council of Ancients would convene that evening to enforce a decree few dared to speak aloud. Auri, a lithe figure cloaked in deep indigo, hurried through the winding alleys, her tails curling tightly around her waist like ribbons of tension. Her ears flicked at every sound: the clatter of hooves, the murmur of hushed voices, the distant bark of a night-watch sentinel. She had lived under Vulpine law for her entire life, respecting its codes without question, until tonight. The law was brutal in its clarity. For any Vulpine female accused of defying the traditions of the Council, there existed a ceremonial trial. And the trial required exposure. A public stripping not just of garments but of pretense, of illusion, of protection. It was designed to break one's spirit, to force submission. Auri's heart pounded in her chest, her breaths shallow. She had been accused of a subtle defiance, a quiet rebellion against the rigid codes of her people, and now the verdict hung like a guillotine. When she entered the central plaza, the air vibrated with anticipation. Crowds of Vulpines, their fur shimmering in shades of silver, gold, and russet, gathered in a silent ring around the marble dais. Atop it stood Master Thalen, the eldest of the council, his amber eyes sharp as flint. His expression betrayed nothing, yet the weight of authority pressed down upon the plaza like a physical force. "Auri of the North Spires," Thalen's voice boomed, resonating across the plaza. "Vulpine law declares that you must undress, in accordance with the traditions of your ancestors, to reveal your true self before your peers." Auri's ears flattened against her head. She had imagined this moment countless times, rehearsed the defiance that might save her, and yet her legs shook like saplings in a storm. But before she could step forward, a voice called softly, drawing her attention. It was him. Kieran, a human who had lived among the Vulpines for many cycles, and one of the few outsiders granted trust. He stepped from the shadowed edge of the plaza, his eyes warm, calm, unwavering. "You don't have to do this," he murmured, his voice carrying to her alone amid the hushed crowd. "Not if you don't wish to. There are other ways to be seen, Auri." Auri blinked. The laws were absolute. This wasn't just a choice. Yet the gentleness in his gaze, the unflinching kindness, sparked a courage she hadn't known she possessed. For the first time, the oppressive weight of tradition felt negotiable. Master Thalen's voice cut through the moment. "Do you comply or do you resist, Auri?" She swallowed hard. The plaza seemed to contract, the expectant faces pressing in, waiting for her to crumble. But then she lifted her chin. Her tails flicked defiantly, a subtle wave of color against the amber light. "I choose to reveal my truth, but not as you dictate." A murmur rippled through the crowd. The law had never encountered such a response. Auri stepped onto the dais, not stripping but standing tall, letting the light catch the natural luster of her fur, her eyes shining with fierce clarity. Kieran moved closer, standing beside her. "Let her be seen," he said, addressing the council. "Not by force, but by who she truly is." A tense silence followed. Thalen's amber eyes narrowed, yet he studied Auri. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, his stance softened. "There is wisdom in courage," he admitted. "And perhaps the law, too, can bend for the strength of spirit rather than mere ritual." The crowd watched, stunned, as the decree shifted in real time, a momentary fracture in centuries of rigid tradition. Auri's defiance, tempered by dignity and guided by Kieran's steady presence, had transformed a trial of shame into a testament of identity. By the time the twin moons rose fully over Lyria, the plaza had emptied of its tension, leaving only Auri and Kieran on the marble dais. She exhaled a long, tremulous breath, feeling for the first time in her life the true warmth of freedom. "You changed everything," she whispered, her tails brushing against his arm. "No," Kieran said softly. "You did. I only reminded you that your truth belongs to you." As they descended the steps together, the city lights shimmering in gold and silver, Auri felt a sense of belonging that transcended law, tradition, or fear. Tonight, she had faced the weight of centuries, and it had not broken her. Instead, it had revealed a new path, one illuminated by courage, compassion, and the unspoken bond between two very different beings who had learned to see each other as they truly were. In the end, the plaza, the council, the laws, all of it had changed, if only slightly, because one Vulpine had dared to stand, and one human had dared to believe. By the time the twin moons rose fully over Lyria, the tension in the plaza had dissolved, leaving only Auri and Kieran on the marble dais. Auri's heart still raced, but her stance was unshakable. She had chosen not to submit to a law meant to humiliate her, yet she had revealed her truth in the most courageous way she could. "You changed everything," she whispered, her tails brushing lightly against Kieran's arm. "No," he replied softly, his amber eyes steady and kind. "You did. I only reminded you that your truth belongs to you." From the edge of the crowd, Master Thalen watched silently, the weight of centuries of tradition pressing against him. Yet something in Auri's defiance, tempered with dignity, touched even the eldest of the council. Slowly he nodded, a rare concession. The law could bend, if only to honor courage and integrity. The plaza, once heavy with expectation and fear, now seemed lighter, filled with a newfound respect. Whispers ran through the remaining onlookers, not of scandal, but of admiration. One Vulpine had dared to stand, and the world, if only slightly, had shifted in response. Auri exhaled, a tremulous, liberating breath. For the first time she felt truly seen, not by coercion but by choice. Kieran offered his hand, and together, they descended the dais, leaving behind the echoes of rigid laws. In that quiet moment, Auri realized that freedom was not given by tradition or decree. It was claimed by courage, tempered with conviction, and guided by trust. The plaza, the council, even the ancient laws, they had not vanished, but they had changed, just enough to allow a new path to emerge. Auri had faced the weight of centuries, and she had not been broken. She had been transformed.